And you're here with us on Fine Music Breakfast. I'm Annabelle Drumm here with you, and I've got someone in the studio with me, the Australian baritone with a surprisingly long list of achievements from such a young age. He's performed with Ton Koopman with the Amsterdam Baroque Orchestra, performed Gluck with the Aix-en-Provence Festival in France. They've also been at the Glyndebourg Festival in the UK. He's been singing at the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican, at the Lyric Opera Chicago, and also Macau International Music Festival, all over the place. Not forgetting his roots, though, he's performed extensively in Australia as well. I would like to welcome David Greco.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
I'm pleased to see you here. Now, you've got such an amazing bio. I just want to understand a little bit more about how you ended up performing in Asia and America and Europe.
Well, I mean, you go where the work is, I guess, and
all the other singers doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in this day and age where travel is so easy and there are so many opportunities available to musicians these days all over the world, it makes sense to, go where the action is, as it were.
Well, there's certainly a lot of action where you were going. That's
absolutely.
Just all over.
I mean, actually, next week I have to go back to Europe and finish a recording and do a couple of concerts. So, yeah, I love the freedom, actually, and it's an exciting life, yeah.
And moving around all the different companies. So you're looking at, you love your old music, don't you? Your early music.
Much, yeah,
so
absolutely.
Where do you think that came from?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess I have an avid love with romantic, Renaissance Baroque music, and that has kind of been given the historically informed performance treatment. And
not always, though.
No, that's very true, but I think it's something that's definitely come in the last 20, 25 years, and it's moving further later and later, so the romantic period is now getting...
That's old now.
That's exactly right. Well, it's kind of getting the hip treatment, as it were, historically informed performance. And so I'm very interested in that, and it makes sense for me to approach this music with the same mindset, I guess.
Yeah, not everybody seems to want to. So we were just talking earlier how sometimes people want the modern take on old music, and yet you like the idea of taking it back to something more authentic.
Well, I find it really interesting in approaching music from the generation before rather than the generation afterwards. So, for example, approaching Schubert from Bach rather than from Mahler. I think, that way you can get more intrinsically into the mindset of where the composers come from, what's informed this music, and yeah, I find that fascinating.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, I noticed that in one of the videos that you had talking about this album, that one of your friends had said that you have fallen in love with dead divas.
Yeah, right, my obsession with dead divas.
Now, what's that about?
Well, the track that we're going to play very soon is going to reveal that rather explicitly. I have an avid love, as does my colleague that I made this recording that we're going to talk about soon, Erin Hilliard. We have an avid love of singers of the past, and I think we're kind of musical sleuths in a way. These singers sang differently, but why did they sing differently? And what can we learn from them, I think, is really interesting. It's a whole different palette of expressive devices that we find fascinating. I mean, why don't we sing like that anymore? It's an interesting question.
So with the divas, like this particular diva that we're about to listen to,
right.
What was it that was different about? What did you discover?
You know what? To pinpoint explicitly, it's the expressive nature of her singing that we don't follow anymore. It's the devices she uses, it's her phrasing, it's her ornaments. And why don't we use that anymore? Why did that fall out of favour? So we researched that a lot. That informed us. Yeah.
Okay, so who are we going to listen to this time round?
On a Friday morning, we're going to listen to none other than Judy Garland.
Beautiful. Let's have a listen and see what we can tune into the phrasing, right?
Yes,
the phrasing's
absolutely.
What we're listening for. So what was it about Judy Garland that inspired you to move forward with your singing?
Well, it seems like a far stretch, but if you listen to what she's doing, her, what we call in music, portamento, which means carrying the voice, sliding between notes, her expressive use of pulling the rhythm apart, tempo rubato, and just a kind of an altogether almost jazz-like flexibility. Well, yes, she's popular music, but up until Judy Garland, which is about the 1920s, 1930s, classical music and popular music ran the same course. And then about 1930, popular music carried on and classical music went on another diversion and chose to rid itself of these things that I just mentioned, this kind of expressive sliding between notes, this pulling the rhythm apart, not being exactly in time with the accompaniment. And everything that Judy Garland does there, Erin and I, believe replicas very similar practices from singers in the 19th century. And in fact, if you listen to the very first recordings by the famous opera singers Nellie Melba, Caruso, Adelina Patti, they have exactly the same expressive techniques that Judy Garland uses there.
My goodness.
It's fascinating, yeah.
And we never think of it that way these days.
Never, yeah. Musical sleuths.
So it's changed a lot. So you decided to take that back to 19th century music.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we didn't want to kind of reinvent the wheel, as it were, but we thought, what can this older style of singing, how can that inform Schubert? What can that do to our interpretation? What we found is that it ended up we were able to highlight the expressive nature of the poetry more. We were able to make, through sliding around a little bit or being not being exactly in time with the piano, we were able to highlight certain melancholic phrases or maybe dramatic moments. We were able to speed up and slow down and just have that kind of more jazz-like fluidity. And it just brings a whole different kind of pathos and drama and prosodic nature to the words, the prose to the words.
So it takes a great communication between the two of you as well, and trust that you can bend it and push it around, and he can hold it steady for you to come back to.
And I'll tell you, that takes practice, because as classical musicians, we're always taught, wow, you must be in time. You must be in time with your pianist. No, we were very much trying not to be in time with each other, and that's hard when you've trained so hard
to be rigid, really.
To be rigid, actually, exactly. So we're trying to bring that fluidity back into this style of singing.
I love the fact when I listened to this album that you were using a pianoforte, and it sounds. I often talk about pianoforte sounding like a comfortable slipper.
Yes.
It's so intimate and soft, and it's not designed for the great big huge concert hall. That it feels like it really could be in a salon.
Absolutely. This music was designed to be in a salon, and so it's a 20th century phenomenon in a way that this music is now presented in auditoriums that have over 2,000 seats. It's wonderful. Lots of people can be exposed to this music, but it's not how it was intended to be performed. And I think what we lose, as you just said, is this intimacy, this private nature of it. And I think what we were able to do on this recording was really capture a kind of a salon feel.
I think you did that perfectly.
Thank you.
Let's have a listen to a piece of that from the album. What is it that we get to listen to?
This is a Lindenbaum, which is translated to the linden tree.
A good favourite. Let's have a listen. So beautiful, really very intimate. And I noticed, as we're heading towards the end there, the pianoforte almost sounded like a harpsichord. Why did that happen?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. The forte piano, funnily, has 6 pedals. And what, may you ask, do these 6 pedals do? Well,
with only 2 feet.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the modern piano, if you're lucky, has 3. Most have 2. The 6 pedals, they carry with them different effects. That pedal that you commented makes it sound a bit like a harpsichord. Basically, takes all the strings off and reduces the felt to just a very thin string. So it sounds like it's almost a harpsichord. There's a janissary stop that makes it sound like Turkish bands. There's a drum stop. There's a raspy stop that makes it sound a little bit like a John Cage piano with a bit of paper in the middle. It's a rustling sound. So what we're talking about, this reclaiming the expressive nature of this music, these pedals and this piano.
You could only do it on a pianoforte.
Exactly. I mean, just super expressive pianos.
Are all the pianofortes like that?
Not all of them, but the one we used was a replica 1820s Viennese piano that was almost identical, what we think, to the piano that Schubert would have used.
Well found. And was that down in Melbourne?
It was courtesy of the Melbourne Conservatorium of Music, yeah. There's one in Sydney as well, but not a lot. They're beautiful beasts. They are beasts, really.
They're alive, aren't they?
They are. They're very much alive, yeah.
And when you've got all those pedals to change, you've got so much more scope. It kind of sounds like what you might do with an organ, is to change the sounds within it.
Absolutely. It's in a way, it's different stops, exactly. These pianos had different stops, whereas the pianos now are built to be loud and strong. Pianos back then weren't built for volume. They were built for the expressivity. And there is the key.
Yeah. Well, I think this album is absolutely superb.
Thank you.
Now, it's going to be our CD of the week next week, so listeners can join in every day from Monday to Friday. Just keep on joining. Just come on.
Yeah.
And if you cannot possibly wait till Monday, that you can buy this CD on David's website. If you go to David Greco, which is GRECO.info on the end. That's an interesting ending.
It's what was available.
Yes, I've used one of those myself. Yes, they're very good. So davidgreco.info. If you go there, you can get the link to iTunes, as well as, and where else can they get, are they in the shops here in Sydney as well?
It was #1 bestseller for 3 or 4 weeks in a row at Fish Fine Music in the Town Hall Arcade. So it's certainly available there as well.
The Town Hall Arcade.
It is, yes, indeed. And I think JB Hi-Fi as well, yes. But all over the web as well, if you...
Wonderful. Congratulations. Number
Thank you.
1.
Thank you so much.
Start boasting about that one. That's
Absolutely.
really good. Thank you so much for coming in today, David.
Thank you, Annabelle.
Alrighty.